Habari na karibu to A Drink with the Past with your very woke host,
Martin.
And Jose.
I'm not woke.
On this episode, we are traveling to a new country, not discussed on this channel, Kenya. For those that don't know who Kenya is, it's not a person that we're talking about. It's a country. As far as where it is, look it up, because I don't know the answer to that question. For today's drink of choice, we are scaling it back to Cliff Lead Claret wine from Napa Valley. This was gifted to my family years ago from friends that went to Napa Valley. So sit back, pour one in, and Maisha Marifu as we take a drink with the past. Okay, so why? Where are we in Kenya?
So, Kenya is basically located in the eastern part of the continent of Africa. All right, it's basically a country that's bordered to Uganda, right? And basically, this country has been known to be like really good for like safaris, right? If you like going on safaris and things like that, then Kenya is one of the best places to go to.
Okay. Why? So, what are we talking about?
I'm glad you asked. So let me ask you this: do you think lions really eat humans?
I mean, I've seen maybe. For those that do watch Crazy Anime, and I've seen that episode where that guy got attacked by a lion, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I feel like after that scene from that episode, I feel like it's plausible to assume that, lions can eat people if they're able to tear one up and send them to the hospital. But I don't know. Before you show me this topic, did you really think that lions have the capability of killing people, or at least eating them?
Yeah. Well, at first I did think lions were able to eat humans, but then as I got to learn a little bit more about lions and their dietary, what they eat, that's not really the case. In most part, lions do not eat humans at all. They usually focus on eating wildebeest, antelopes, gazelles, water buffaloes, right? Things that have a lot of meat and the texture of it because of their teeth. Their teeth are really strong, and it's the meat is hard, but their teeth are able to rip.
Would you say that lions have the same mentality as sharks, where they just happen to eat a human if they walk past them, as compared to sharks when they're in the water and they just somehow come across a human and bite their arm off or their leg off?
No, not like that. It just flesh, right? Mm-hmm. If it's flesh, if it's moving, right, they don't smell blood or. Well, I guess they can smell blood, but it's not like that, an instinct what the shark has it. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah. But that's not to say that for this topic, right? Well, the reason why I brought that up, the reason why I asked you is because in this topic, I am going to explain how two famous lions did just that in 1898 Kenya. All right. And this episode is known as the man-eating lions of Tsavo, also known as the ghosts in the darkness.
So what are we doing in Tsavo?
All right. So the British, of course, was the largest empire of the world at that point in the 1890s. The British Empire was the largest that the world has ever seen, right? And you have the famous slogan, which is "The sun never sets on the British Empire."
I've never heard of that.
So the British went by the slogan, the sun never sets on the British Empire. The sun is always shining, because the British basically
just because of how much control they have,
how much colonies they had all over the world. How much territory they had all over the world.
Taking so it no matter where you go, but okay.
Yeah, Yeah, like because, well, like no matter where you go,
It's always daylight.
yeah, it's always daylight in the British Empire. So,
Okay.
so basically, the British went to Africa basically to get the raw materials that they needed, right? More like ivory, rubber, and those other good things because we were way past the age of the Industrial Revolution, right? So of course all the things that are required, like the rubber, like the like the propeller thing, right? Like the straps, right? Is like it was made of rubber. Cars were becoming a new thing, right? And rubber was the main ingredient for tires. It was rubber, right? So they had to extract that, and so they actually wanted to build a railroad starting from the port city of Mombasa, which is actually the most it's like the port for East Africa, if you could say, right? Mombasa, okay? And the British wanted to make a rail line from Mombasa all the way up to Lake Victoria, which is in present day Uganda. All right.
I've heard of Lake Victoria. I just thought it was like already in the UK.
Canada or
No, I thought it was already in the UK.
Canada.
No, I thought it was in the UK already. Like
why not Canada? What's your problem with Canadians, huh?
Well, is it close to Canada? Am I wrong for assuming I'm talking about a different Lake Victoria than the one in Canada?
Oh, I don't know. They don't really have a lot of lakes in Britain. And they don't have a lot of lakes in Britain.
I have yet to go
except Loch Ness.
Don't piss me off.
Except Loch Ness in Scotland. Yeah, but no. So there's a lake in present day Uganda called Queen Victoria, right? Named in honor of Queen Victoria, right? Who was the queen?
Not related to the one in Canada, Lake Victoria over there. Okay.
So basically, Lake Victoria had a river, and it was actually the key to the Nile. So when you control Lake Victoria, you're able to do shipping from your colony within the interior of Africa, go up the Nile, and then do your trade from right there.
Was Egypt even controlled by the British at that point, if they have control of Lake Victoria?
Yeah, the British actually were somewhat like a protectorate already
of Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now they were able to get full control of the Suez Canal and all that.
Okay.
Right? So basically, yeah. So the whole point about this was to make the Kenya-Uganda Railway, right? Right. This was how it all starts. It starts with the building of a railway, but it also comes with a building of a bridge too, where the train can cross, right? In the little town of Tsavo, And in comes a man by the name of Colonel John Henry Patterson. All right.
Okay, what does he have to do with any of this?
So John Henry Patterson is basically a well-respected military man, right? He was basically a man who knew how to give orders. He knew how to get things done, right? Mm-hmm. And basically, like he's tasked with this because technically, a lot of things were not getting done, right? So, of course, Patterson was set in to say, hey, check this out, right? Like, well, we got to get this thing going, So, John Henry Patterson is known for writing a book about this specific topic, the man-eaters of Tsavo, and his experience. Like, this is his own autobiography about this event, right? So, this is where he said... So this is actually from his memoir right here. Mm-hmm. It says, it must be remembered that although Mombasa, the sunny gateway to this land of adventure, was discovered by Vasco da Gama in 1498, 6 years after Columbus had made his wonderful voyage to America, yet until well within living memory, practically nothing was known of the interior of the country. No white man had ever looked upon its snow-clad equatorial mountains or sailed upon its vast central lakes, right? So, this is him explaining about Mombasa, right? And basically his arrival there, and he explains everything about Mombasa, saying like how it was amazing, right? It's beautiful, right? With its Portuguese caliphate architecture, right? So he basically gives a good insight about Mombasa, right? So basically, that's where we are with Colonel John Henry Patterson, right? So he gets on the train, and even right here, it's like Mombasa, the starting point of the Uganda Railway, is an old Arab city fringed with palms and washed by the warm waters of the Indian Ocean. It was towards noon on March 1st, 1898, that I first found myself entering its narrow and somewhat dangerous harbor. The town lies on the island of Mombasa and is separated from the mainland by a very narrow channel, part of which forms the harbor. And as our vessel steamed slowly in, close under the quaint old Portuguese fortress built over 300 years ago, I was much struck with the beauty of the view, which gradually opened out before me. Right.
Okay.
So this is literally like detailed writing of how Mombasa looked like back then, right? When he first arrived. And it was actually detailed really beautifully, right? And how he even mentions that, his first glimpse of Mombasa gave him a pleasant surprise, right? He was just in awe with everything that was around him and what he saw in the city, right? So he ends up taking the train, right, to Tsavo, because at that point Tsavo was like the last stop before any other rails could go, right? So
Okay.
so now we get to like everything, right? We get to the two lions, all right?
Okay.
And so for the past few months, a lot of the workers were getting killed, right? They were getting killed, and the workers were mainly from India.
They're not locals from
There were
from
some.
Kenya?
No. There were some local. Yeah, there were locals. There were local Kenyans, but like majority of the workforce were from Africa, were from India,
Okay.
right? Because of like cheap labor, like cheap labor or something.
Cheap
like,
labor at that point in time, if you will.
Yeah, and so basically, yeah. So these disappearances start happening, and basically, Patterson has to investigate this, right? And so obviously the killings are going to begin. Like the killings are going to start, and Patterson does write that in his book, so
Is that part of like where they're building the railway have like any jungles nearby, like that could make it a case that a lion could just be lurking around the area?
maybe, basically, maybe. Basically, it was just all savanna. So savanna is basically just like a flat land. Of course, there's trees, but they're like all spread out, and basically everything is flat. It's not like the interior of Africa, like Ghana, right? Where it's like everything is green and things like that. Basically, yeah. And so basically, the workers began to wake up to a strange phenomenon that was happening, right? And that was basically the story of two terrifying lions, or they shouldn't even be called lions, but they should be thought of as creatures, or as like devils. They were viewed more as like these devils, like these spirits, right? And eventually it became known. It was so terrifying to the locals that they even named these two lions. They ended up naming them the ghosts in the darkness, right? And so
Because of the behavior?
basically the behavior, like they come in, they grab it, and they disappear in the night.
They come and they grab people and they just
Yeah,
disappear.
yeah, and they disappear into the night. And so, like, but you know what's interesting about this story is that long before the construction of the railways in Africa and before the British right came in, there were two chiefs of the tribe, right? There were two chiefs that basically warned the tribe, hey, we have a prophecy for you guys. And the prophecy was this. They basically explained to them that a iron snake was going to cross through their lands. And
Okay, an iron
that they,
snake.
yeah, an iron snake, right? That a giant iron snake was gonna cross through their lands, and that they wouldn't be able to stop it, right? And this was years, right? And but then henceforth, flash forward to that present day, what do you get? A train, right? When you think of the railways, you know how it's like built. It looks like a snake if you look at from a bird eyes view, right? It looks like a snake. So basically, that prophecy came to life, and so the locals at this point started to believe that those lions were really like the reincarnation of the two chiefs, like trying to prevent this railway from being built.
But didn't he just say in the prophecy that they weren't able to stop it? So if that truly was the case, and say that is you say the ghost happened to be the ghost of the chiefs, inhabiting these two lions, snatching people that are building this railway. I say that's true. How is that? You know, how does that make sense if they like if you already mentioned that there was no way of stopping this during that time period? Not right now. Obviously today, I mean,
Yeah.
you could say that obviously didn't like it's still panned out the way it did. Like there's a railway over there in Kenya, in Tsavo. So I mean, at that point in time, I don't know how that
Yeah. Well,
made any
I
sense.
want to say like, it's not that they told them like, oh, you can't stop it. It's like they were just letting them know, like, oh, well, we're just letting you know. But then like, but this is back in the 1890s, and of course, people were still superstitious, especially those like in Africa and in India, like in the Middle East, like they still they have their superstitions about like certain things of events, especially when it comes with animals. So like, yeah, so the locals began referring to those two, believing that they were demons, that they had supernatural powers, and that they were like the reincarnation of the two chiefs trying to put a stop to it. That's what people were thinking at the time. That was their thought, and basically Patterson in the book actually does a good job with describing the killings, right? And so let's look at one part, which is basically his aide Ungan Singh. Okay, so he writes, next morning I was up betimes, eager to make acquaintance with my new surroundings. My first impression of coming out of my hut was that I was hemmed in on all sides by a dense growth of impenetrable jungle, and on scrambling to the top of the hill close at hand, I found what the whole country as far, right? So at first he describes what the country, right? He sees the beauty, right? And basically he surveys the land, right? Making sure like, okay, this is where the bridge is going to be built, etc., right? And so he says that everything's going well, right? Basically, it's like, okay, everything's going well. We looked at the exterior, we looked at the river, right, and like the bridge. And then he says, unfortunately, this happy state of affairs did not continue very long, for our work was soon interrupted in a rude and startling manner. Two most ferocious and insatiable man-eating lions appeared upon the scene, and for over 9 months waged an intermittent warfare against the railway and all those connected with it in the neighborhood of Tsavo. This culminated in a perfect reign of terror when they actually succeeded in bringing the railway work attacks to a complete standstill. At first, they were not always successful in their efforts to carry off a victim, but as time went on, they stopped at nothing and indeed braved any and every danger to obtain their favorite food. Their methods became so uncanny and their man-stalking so well-timed and so successful that the workmen firmly believed that they were not real animals but at all, but devils in lion's shape, just like I mentioned, right? So, like I said, right, if something like that is happening on a nightly basis, what the hell are you gonna think? Like, what are you gonna think about that?
First of all, I would never be building a railway. Assuming in that time period, if I had no choice and I'm stuck doing this, I would have been like, you know what, fuck it, bye. I'm just taking my plane ticket back to the UK at this point, or back to.
Back then. Well, what do you mean? You said back then. You mean
back then.
And
I would ship myself back to the UK, and pretend like I didn't work there whatsoever, because the fuck am I gonna do with two lions chasing after me, trying to pull me away into the darkness of the night? I don't know about you, but I'd be
scared. No, I'd be. First of all,
I'd
I'd be scared too. No, I'd be fucking scared. I would be thinking the same thing too. Like,
I don't think it's more so just fear.
They're like that. They're demon. I
don't even think it's just fear. I'm just like, it's just like the standard like horror trope. You see evil, just leave. I wouldn't want to confront it at this point.
I mean, even so, even zoologists at the time period, like those who study animals at the time period, even agree, like, you know what, like, hey, like, are you sure, like, this was a lion that did this? Like, you know what, lions don't act like this. They don't attack humans. Are you sure? And so it was like, yeah, it was really scary. That's why they say, like, oh, they're not real animals because they're devils, because they wouldn't be attacking humans. They're scared of humans. So
I don't know if it's more so scared. It's just more so like, who the fuck are you? You guys are like, you guys are just standing versions of what we are, except you guys don't eat us. At least not that I'm aware of.
All right. So he continues on with many a time. Okay, this is just names from the past. Okay.
All
right. Look, he says, many a time the coolies solemnly assured me that it was absolutely useless to attempt to shoot them. They were quite convinced that the angry spirits of two departed native chiefs have taken this form in order to protest against a railway being made through their country. I had only been a few days at Tsavo when I first heard that these brutes had been seen in the neighborhood. Shortly afterwards, one or two coolies mysteriously disappeared, and I was told that they had been carried off in the night from their tents and devoured by lions. At the time, I did not credit this story and was more inclined to believe that the unfortunate men had been the victims of foul play at the hands of some of their comrades. Right? So that was his first thought about why these two men, about the two men that he first heard. That was his first thought. Like, okay. These are just they probably got killed by another group, right? They got killed by another group, and they got into like bad time. Like they got into a bad time, right? It's like a bad moment. They got into a bad moment right there.
Wrong place at the wrong time.
Basically, right? And so, like, and also he believed that they just wanted to quit, right? That's why these men were disappearing. That either they were, like, being killed by each other, or they were just walking off the job. Like, they didn't want to work.
I'll take the latter. I'll take the walking off the job, because I would just not be there.
All right, so they were, as it happened, very good workmen. Even he admits it, right? They were, as it happened, very good workmen, and had each saved a fair number of rupees. So rupees is if you don't for the audience who don't know, if you don't know what rupees are it's basically the currency of India. All right. So I thought it quite likely that some scoundrels from the gangs had murdered them for the sake of their money. Again, this suspicion, however, was very soon dispelled, right? So basically, he said like, "Oh, I thought it was likely that scoundrels, right, from gangs, they murdered them for their money, but it was disproved. Like this was okay." And then he goes on with saying, about 3 weeks after my arrival, I was aroused at dawn one morning by a man who came rushing to my tent to tell me that one of my jemadars, a fine, powerful Sikh named Ungan Singh, had been seized during the night and carried off by a huge lion. I immediately caught up my rifle and ran to the jemadar's tent to find out if the man's story was correct. Okay, I'm not. Obviously, you gotta say, right? Okay, you gotta see. You gotta need evidence, right? On making an examination of the place, I was soon convinced that the gruesome tale was all too true. The lion's pug marks, right, the paw, were plainly visible in the sand, while the furs made by the heels of the unfortunate victim showed the direction in which he had been dragged away. Moreover, the jemadar foreman, basically, he finally makes a clarification of what a jemadar is. It's a foreman, had shared his tent with half a dozen workmen, and one of these had actually witnessed the whole occurrence, which he described in quaint oriental style. "Sahib," he said, "I was awake and lying next to Ungan Singh, who was fast asleep. I was looking out into the moonlight when suddenly I saw a big lion put his head in at the open door. My heart turned to water when I saw him so near me and I could not move. His eyes glowed like coals of fire as he looked first at me and then at Ungan Singh. I almost died of fright lest he should choose me. Then, by the kindness of Allah, he seized the jemadar by the throat instead of your slave." Oh my gosh, he thanked God. He actually thanked God that he wasn't the one.
I tend to forget sometimes. I'm like, first of all, how does a lion get into a tent? And then I realize, like, well, a tent doesn't have a door. It's
open. It's just like an open.
It's just
like an
never
opening.
mind. Continue.
Yeah, and then Patterson continues. He went on to relate how the unfortunate foreman called out, "Choro, let go," and threw his arms up round the lion's neck. But next moment, the brute lifted him off the bed and pulled him away, while his terrified companions, all wide awake now, lay helpless and panic-stricken, listening to the terrible struggle taking place outside the tent door. Poor Ungan Singh must have died hard, but what chance had he? As the coolie gravely remarked, was he not fighting with a lion? Right? So,
I mean,
this was like a story. The story.
I think what's unfortunate about this story is the fact that the natives, know about the story because the chiefs, they're around their own tribe. But obviously these people that come from India, they have no idea what they're coming into, and all they're doing is being tasked with building this railway, so they don't know that there was a story going on, or that there was a premonition.
Yeah, even though they didn't know about this story, they still believed that they were still possessed by devils.
No, that's what I'm saying. That's the unfortunate part, is like these people that come in to do labor, they're just unfortunate pawns, when in reality, if the chiefs were there around the time that this was being built, they could have warned them ahead of time, like, hey, by the way, like, you coming here is not going to be a good idea, because something's going to go down if you show up. That's my perspective on this, but mind you, I guess that's not very, that wouldn't be everyone's thinking during that time period.
Yeah, basically. So now this is what happens when he goes search, right? When he goes searching around the perimeter to see if he can find anything, right? So he said, when we reached the spot where the Jemadar's body had been devoured, a dreadful spectacle presented itself. The ground all around was covered with blood, morsels of flesh, and the larger bones, but the unfortunate man's head had been left intact, save for a couple of holes made by the lion's tusks. It lay a short distance away from the other remains, the eyes wide open and staring, with a startled, horrified look in them. We collected the remains as well as we could and buried them under a heap of stones. the head with its fixed, terrified state, seeming to watch us all the time, for we did not bury it, but took it back to camp for identification before the medical officer. So then, thus occurred my first experience of man-eating lions, and I vowed then and there that I would avenge the Gemmador's horrible death and spare myself no pains until I had rid the neighborhood of the brutes. I little knew the trouble that was in store for me, or how narrow were to be my own escapes from sharing poor Ungan Singh's tragic fate. So basically, this is the beginnings of his stories about talking about these lions, all right, these man-eating lions. And so in the book, he basically continues talking about his encounters with them. He talks about how in India, right, well, not in India, he talks about how like the Indians and like the Africans are scared, and at times they wanted to like mutiny, I guess. Yeah,
Well, yeah, 'cause
they wanted to mutiny
I don't think no amount of money is worth building something that's eventually just going to be a risk to your own life. Not even just because, like, oh, the job is hard, but because other outside factors, like a man eating lion in the distance, is just going to come and kill you at any point in time. I think it's fair to assume that a mutiny is bound to happen.
And at this point, really the only thing that the workers could do was try to make surroundings around their camp, right? So he said by this time, the camps of the workmen had also been surrounded by thorn fences. Nevertheless, the lions managed to jump over, break through.
As they are, because they're lions.
So obviously, these men are trying to protect themselves, you know. And thinking, of course, that the thorns were going to do anything, the lions were still able to go through, like without hesitation, basically. And so it was a rough time, you know, and work was actually stalled for like a good 3 weeks. Like the lions actually made the work on the railway stop for like 3 weeks.
Interesting.
And so, yeah, and so basically, what else was there? So he got help, right? The British. So he ended up telling the British, right? Right, like the government saying like, oh, hey, this is what's happening. We can't get any work done because of these two lions, right? And they were like, you know what? We're gonna send someone to help you. All right, we'll send someone to help.
I'm surprised it's taken them this long to have like militia or anyone show up to at least patrol the ground at this point, so they can, help the workers out. If it has to be an obligation to build this railway, and to safeguard people who are building it, I don't know. I feel like it's just been too long to have to get some sort of assistance around here.
Right. So basically, it was just like.
So what? They get their help, and then what happens?
So basically, the reign of terror happens, right? Patterson has to build like a tree stand.
Like a patrol guard?
Yeah. So yeah, he ends up building like a tree stand, right? Basically, where he could station himself, so he could be in high ground, so that he could shoot at the lions, right? So he builds himself this, but it's like every night something happens. So he thinks they're gonna come right here one night, right? Okay, they're gonna come right here. I'm right here on this spot. I'm ready for that. But then all of a sudden, the cries happen like on the other side.
I think that's just user error at the time,
right? And then like, because he was a tracker too, because he assumes, right? It was like,
But here's the thing, like when it comes to behavior like that, assuming that it's the case is true, that they're being possessed by an actual person inside of a body of a lion. They're unpredictable with their movement. They're not going to do the same thing. So it's only, I wouldn't say it's only obvious, but it's only reasonable to assume they're not going to attack the same way they do previous nights. So as I'm saying, I feel like it's just user error to not build multiple tree stands, like you said, to be able to watch it from different angles. and have more people be hired to do the same thing he does, but just watch the campgrounds so that, a lion just doesn't enter the property or the premises, and start carrying people off like they usually would do.
Yeah. But imagine hearing that. Like, even like the workers were scared off their mind. Honestly, if I stayed there for that long, I would fucking be scared off my
I'd be like,
freaking life.
I'd be like,
I would be praying. I would have been
what is
like,
this, 18?
Lord.
What year is this?
1890s.
What is 1898 version of Amazon? I want to Amazon ship myself back to the UK now. How long is shipping? Right, another 3 weeks.
Or India.
Oh man.
So now the British the British government is sending in the district governor, right? And this name. So he says some little time before the flight of the workmen. So this is where like the workmen begin to actually leave. Like you said, a lot of them began to leave.
They're Amazon shipping themselves back to their country.
Yeah. And so so he writes some little time before the flight of the workmen, I had written to Mr. Whitehead, the district governor, asking him to come and help me in my campaign against the lions and bring with him any of his Askaris, native soldiers, that he could spare. He replied accepting the invitation and told me to expect him after about dinner time on December 7th, which turned out to be the day after the exodus of the terrified workmen.
So now when he gets here, there's nobody here. Almost.
Well,
I wouldn't say nobody, but almost nobody working the site.
His train was due at Tsavo about 6 o'clock in the evening, so I sent my boy up to the station to meet him and help to carry his baggage to my camp. In a short time, however, the boy rushed back trembling with terror and informed me that there was no sign of the train or of any of the railway staff, but that an enormous lion was standing on the station platform. Naturally,
that's always fun.
Naturally,
just seeing something else, something more terrifying than a train.
So he says, like, naturally, he didn't believe it, right? Because by that time, all the workmen were in such a state of panic, right? That if a baboon, a jackal, or even a rat had been seen on the platform, it would have been magnified into a lion. And then the next day, however, he found that the boy was telling the truth, right? For the man-eater had actually taken possession of the railway platform, chased the station master and his assistants into the station building. So at this point, the lion was out there, and everyone that worked there were like basically held hostage inside the station, basically.
So now they're taking hostage of the station. Now they're taking people hostage inside the site. That's delightful.
Yeah, and so he was saying that how he saw them, right? I could not understand what they had found to eat, for I had heard no commotion in the camps, and I knew by bitter experience, right? So he's just going on saying like, oh, well, what are they here for? Like, what are they eating, right? They're not doing anything.
They're eating the district governor. What do you think they're doing here?
So, I don't know. But anyways, on the way, whom should I meet? My missing guest. So he ends up going back, right? The lions run away and he ends up going back to the camp, right? And he ends up finding this man, Mr. Whitehead, looking very pale and ill and generally disheveled. And he's like, where on earth have you come from? I exclaimed in astonishment. Why didn't you turn up to dinner last night? A nice reception you give a fellow when you invite him to dinner, was his only reply. Mm-hmm. Why? What's up? I asked. I'm surprised they even say things like that back then. What's up? Especially on British. Why? What's up? I don't know. Uh-huh. He's like, why? What's up? I asked. That infernal lion of yours nearly did for me last night, said Whitehead. Nonsense. You must have dreamt it, I cried incredulously. For answer, he turned round and showed me his back. That's not much of a dream, is it? He asked. His clothing was rent by one huge tear from the nape of the neck downwards, and on his back there were 4 great claw marks showing red and angry through the torn cloth. Without further parley, I hurried him off to my tent, where I bathed and dressed his wounds, and when I had made him considerably more comfortable, I got from him the whole story of the events of the night. His train had arrived very late, so that it was quite dark when he arrived at Tsavo Station. Ooh, fun time to have a train stop in the middle of a savannah in Africa. Mm-hmm. He set out at once on foot from my camp, and in order to reach it, he had to walk along the railway track which ran through a small cutting. He was accompanied by Abdullah, his sergeant of Askaris, who followed close behind him carrying a lighted lamp. All went all went well until they were about halfway through the glooming cutting when one of the man-eaters suddenly jumped down upon the Indians on the high bank, knocking Whitehead over like a nine-pin and tearing his back in the manner I have described. Fortunately, however, the district governor had his carbine with him and instantly fired. A carbine is basically a rifle.
Yeah.
The flash and loud report must have dazed the lion for a second or two, enabling Whitehead to get free. But next instant, the brute pounced like lightning on the unfortunate Abdullah, with whom he at once made off. All that poor fellow could say was,
Yeah.
all that the poor fellow could say was, bawa bawana Simba, oh master, a lion. And Simba is the African word for lion. Well, in that region, it's the word for lion. Simba.
Right.
So now you know you're basically calling Simba lion. Hey lion,
I mean,
Hakuna Matata, lion.
do we not watch Lion King? Simba? Like, hello?
And of course, he continues saying, as the lion was dragging him over the bank, Whitehead fired again, but without effect, and the brute quickly disappeared into the darkness with his prey. It was, of course, this unfortunate man whom I had heard the man-eaters devouring during the night.
So that's who we heard while he was trying to run back to the...
That was what
That's
he
atrocious.
heard.
Atrocious behavior.
Whitehead himself had a marvelous escape. His wounds were happily not very deep and caused him little or no inconvenience afterwards. Right. So basically, yeah.
So he made his escape. He's on the campsite. So now what? Is he gonna ask for more help now that his foot soldier is dead?
So basically, it goes on like that until one day he ends up building a trap, right? He ends up building this huge trap in order to catch a lion, right? And so, like, when one of the trap doors came down, Patterson yells out to Whitefield, he's like, by heavens, Whitefield, I exclaim, one of the lions is caught.
I don't know why we have to make that accent, but okay.
It's like, by heavens, Whitehead. That's what they say.
Okay.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the lion escaped.
Well, we'd have to see this trap to be like, well, we already know why that happened. But, I mean, I guess life happens. We can escape. It's not unusual to have a man-eating lion just not stay long in a trap.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, now the next part, right, all of that is like, okay, we gotta get this going, right? We gotta finish this once and for all. So now comes to the end of the Ghost in the Darkness, right? So how does this all end, basically? So basically, Patterson ends up writing that he wounded the first lion with one bullet from a high caliber rifle, right? And the shot struck the lion in its hind leg, but it was able to escape. And that later it returned at night and it began stalking Patterson as he tried to hunt it. And he was able to shoot it through the shoulder, penetrating the heart with a more powerful rifle, and found it lying dead the next morning, not far from his platform, right? So that was the end. That was the end of the lion, right? And he said that when he measured the first lion, it measured from snout to tail like 9 feet 8 inches long.
Taller than the average human.
So that was a long lion. And the second lion was shot 9 times. 5 with the same rifle, 3 with the second, and 1 with the third rifle, 6 finding their mark. The first shot was fired from atop a scaffolding that Patterson had built near a goat killed by the lion.
So that tree stand that he was on, he shot it through the tree stand.
Yeah. 2 shots from a second rifle hit the lion 11 days later as it was stalking Patterson, trying to flee. When they found the lion the next day, Patterson shot it 3 more times with the same rifle, severely crippling it, and shot it 3 times with the third rifle, twice in the chest and once in the head, which killed it. He claimed it died gnawing on a fallen tree branch, still trying to reach him.
What an eventful way. He wasn't gonna go down without a fight, especially knowing that he was up there on that damn tree stand.
Yeah, so basically, that was the end. That comes the end of the Ghost in the Darkness, and that was where everyone now realized, oh, these are just lions, right? They're just regular, normal lions, but these were huge lions, right? And so, Patterson takes pictures with them, right? And he skins the lion.
Selfie
right?
with a lion that almost tried to kill me. Yeah. Okay.
You can call it that, yeah. No, you can call it that, yeah. In today's terms, you can say it. So he ends up skinning the lions, and he sends the lions to the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, and where they are actually displayed to this day. So if you go to the Field Museum of Natural History in Chicago, you can
This is in Chicago?
You can see their remnants. Yeah, you can actually see their skin. You can see their skin in which they put them into like actual lions, right? Into what they were, right, and what they love.
No, thank you. I don't want to see
And they
none
actually
of that.
and they actually have their skull in display as well, right? So basically.
Some people just don't know how to leave shit alone sometimes. Like, just let the lion die where it's supposed to. Why bring it here?
So basically, a lot of theories were said about why these lions began to behave like this.
Okay, let's hear the first one.
Well, because again, lions do not behave like that. No lions behave like that. All right.
Okay, so what was theory number one that they have?
So an outbreak of a cattle plague that took place, right? That devastated, right, the cattle population, right? In 1898, devastated the lions' usual prey, forcing them to find alternative food sources. So this cattle plague basically spread to their food source, like to the water buffaloes and the Cape buffaloes and all of them, right? So it ended up making them find food.
Okay, what's the next
The
one?
Tsavo lions may have been accustomed to finding dead humans at the Tsavo River crossing. Slave caravans to the center of the East African slave trade, Zanzibar, routinely crossed the river there.
So what? There's just random dead carcasses in the river?
Yeah, that was their report, right? That was basically their report. But in 2017, right? Of course, they still went to the idea that, studies say that lions eat humans as a supplement to other food when there's, as a last resort, right? But in 2017, a study by Bruce Patterson found that one of the lions had an infection at the root of his canine tooth.
Okay, this front teeth. Okay.
Yeah, making it hard for that particular lion to hunt. Lions typically use their jaws to grab prey like zebras and wildebeest and suffocate them, right? You know how lions hunt, right? They grab them by the throat with their mouth, like they grab their throats, right? And so, because this lion may have had an infection, and it showed both lions had like an infection in their canines that eventually it started hurting that they can't eat the meat that they're supposed to eat. So
maybe it's just a culmination of all three. Just
with humans, our skin really isn't that hard. Our skin we're really easy to tear, basically.
In someone else's standard, maybe. I don't know.
No, but that's the truth. But
I'm not a doctor, so I can't.
But that's the truth, though.
That.
But that's the truth. Human flesh is more softer and easy to tear than
That's your hot take. I don't know. That's your hot take.
You know what? Let us know what you think. If there are any biologists out there, please,
or anyone with a medical opinion that knows otherwise,
you know
can disprove or prove what he just said.
Oh my gosh, just comment on this, okay?
Whoever can disprove it or prove it, let us know. Maybe it's a culmination of all three. Maybe there was just a plague, and then the infection just came out of nowhere, and then worst comes to worst, you just see dead bodies somewhere in the river, I guess. Because why would there just be random dead bodies in a river?
But it is crazy though, thinking that something like this happened, right? And even today, In Kenya today, there's this wildlife preservation in Kenya, right, or the savannah, in which they do keep track of the lions' behavior right there. They're just making sure that the lions are behaving in their natural state, right? And if anything goes wrong, such as they're eating livestock instead of what they're supposed to be eating, then
Yeah.
they have to go find the lion and figure out what's going on with the lion, right? Because it's already happening right now, too, in Kenya, where like there's a lion that's been observed, right, and that they've been attacking livestock like goats and things like that, like from like from villages, like that. So they're just, and honestly, the ways that, well, so that concludes it. That concludes this, right? And like the reason why I wanted to do this episode was because like, yeah, I've heard about it, right? I heard about it like a few years ago. I heard about this story, and
Where did you hear this? I'm actually curious. Where did you
oh,
hear
so
this?
actually, I watched a movie. There was this movie. They made a movie about this in the 1990s called named "The Ghost in the Darkness." It's a movie that was made about this particular story, and it did a good job in the box office, and like, yeah, like God. It was good. Like it was good. Like it was a good movie. Like it was a really good movie explaining about this event. And so, but I like this show called Destination Unknown.
And they went to.
And
they went to that location?
He went, yeah, he goes there. So if you don't know what Destination Unknown is, it's basically a show done by archaeologist Josh Gates. And, he travels around the world.
Travels to random locations.
Like, he travels around the world looking for, like, exploring like myths and legends and basically things like that, right? He joins archaeological teams. He's been
archaeological dinks, if you will. Anyway,
and he does went. In his new season, like he goes to Tsavo.
This is a new season.
Yeah, like this is barely a season that came out, and he goes to Tsavo and he explores about the thing behind these lions, right? He goes to Tsavo, he talks to experts, right, and then he goes back to the Field Museum in Chicago. And then he goes to the Field Museum in Chicago and he asks the scientists there, like, well, what do you think about this, right? Did you find anything, right, et cetera? And they tell him about the same thing, like, oh, it's because of their teeth, right, and rotting. So, he did a good job. Josh Gates, he did a really good job in this episode, right? He was explanatory about it. He did quote a lot of Patterson's book, his autobiography in it, right? And so yeah, that's the story of the man-eating lions of Tsavo.
Well, thank you for that. I don't want to say frightening discovery, but a very interesting discovery of the man-eating lions. Interesting discovery of the man-eating lions of Tsavo. Thank you guys for sticking to the end and listening to us talk about, the man-eating lions in Tsavo. If you like what you listen to, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you know the next time that we talk about any other topics. Feel free to comment below anything that you liked about this episode, or like we mentioned earlier, if there's any proof or disproof to what he had mentioned about our flesh being so malleable to anything in particular. I thank you guys for joining us as we take a drink with the past.